Beside homemade bread, my other favorite and often used meal partner is the flatbread or the pita bread, an indispensable addition to any serious meal that will keep you full and fed all day long. If you've seen any of my other videos and you decided to come back for more, then I assume that you are finding some value in them. If that's the case, please bless me with your kindness by subscribing to the channel, as it helps me grow and become better. In return, I promise to bring you higher value content each time. Thank you very much. But before I dive into this recipe and ingredients, let me clarify some things and hopefully not confuse you too much. Traditionally, in my country of origin, which is Romania, this type of bread would be described as flatbread, and it's called turtă, not turtle, turtă. Yet online, flatbread is described as an unleavened type of fried flatbread, while pita bread is slightly leavened, spiced flatbread. So, what I'm trying to share with you here is a flatbread pita without any spices. Ta-da! Tragedy avoided, and I say this because a lot of people have a lot of opinions online, especially about things that they hold dear and love. As they should. So take this into account before you continue, and hopefully your stomach will love it either way. At the end of the day, if the belly is full and the palate satisfied, nothing else matters. Good, now let's get to the ingredients. For this recipe you will need 600 grams of plain wheat flour, 400 milliliters of water, 40 milliliters of oil, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 sachet of dry active yeast or 15 grams of fresh yeast. At the same time, the tools needed for this recipe are a large bowl for mixing and dough making, a cast iron pan to cook the breads in, a rolling pin to flatten the dough balls, a silicone mat to keep the dough balls on, and a baking tray. Lastly, you will need a pair of hands to do all the hard work, unless you have a bread machine, in which case you can select the bread dough baking program and relax while the machines make our lives so much more comfortable. That's until the Skynet becomes self-aware and uses the bread machine and the dishwasher to take over the world and throw our comfortable asses into the matrix. Prophecy aside, let's begin with the dough making while we are still in charge of this reality. So, in a large bowl, add the flour, the salt, and in a cup, add the yeast, sugar, water, and oil. This step is necessary to activate the yeast properly and get the optimal rise from the dough. Some people skip this step and just mix everything together, but in my experience, the end product is much better if you help the yeast get done than if you don't. Allow the yeast to wake up for 5 minutes, then add it into the bowl and start mixing all the ingredients together. In my daily bread video, I go all out about the easiest, best, and fastest method to knead the bread dough based on my grandma's advice. So please check out the video as well to become a better bread maker, producer, and provider for your family. For now, I'll just say that the best and quickest method I know is this: kneading the dough by using a drill-like motion, while at the same time pulling it upwards to stretch the gluten out as much as possible so that it binds well with the other ingredients, ensuring a good rise, a delicious taste, and a satisfying mouthfeel. I'm not a scientist, so I don't have all the fancy terms about what's actually happening. All I know is that this method works best for this recipe and for the daily bread recipe, and that's good enough. Honestly, I find that knowing everything about something and not allowing for some magic to be part of it sucks all the life and joy out of it. Because the limitation implied by not being a godlike creature that knows everything, is everywhere, is what gives life meaning and justifies our experience here. Not knowing everything is freeing and satisfying in most aspects of life.
Wow, who knew that there's so much philosophy packed into flatbreads?
When you're done contemplating the meaning of life, use some flour to clean your hands like I am doing here. is the quickest and cleanest way I know of. We're not done yet, because now we will use the baking tray and the silicone mat to portion the dough balls into approximately 70-gram individual pieces. So coat the silicone mat in a thin layer of flour and try to mold and shape the portions of dough into the best round ball that you can make up. It doesn't have to be perfect, just make sure to space them 1 inch apart, as they will grow and connect with each other eventually. That should be the slogan for a dating app. When you're done, cover them with a clean tea towel and let them proof for 1 hour in a warm place, maybe in your heart or just the kitchen counter. You know better. Okay, I'll stop with the bad jokes, because the next stage is seriously important. After the proofing stage is done, start heating the cast iron pan on high heat, no oil or any other ingredients needed, just a seasoned, dry cast iron pan. And while the pan is getting to temperature, start rolling your dough balls one at a time. I advise against rolling all of them at once, as they may stick. My preferred and tried method is: I heat the pan, I roll a ball, I add it to the pan and I cook it for about 1 minute on each side, or until it's nice and brown. In this initial minute that it takes to cook on the first side, I roll the next ball. This pace gives me the continuity and flexibility to cook the entire batch in a safe and enjoyable way without overcooking the bread, burning myself, or filling the house with smoke and setting all the alarms on. A note on the rolling stage: do not make them too thin. A bit of thickness will ensure a nice puff in the flatbread, and this will give you a very nice mouthfeel when you enjoy them. Too thin and they will be a dry, crispy cracker. And if that's what you want, you do you. I won't judge much. Now don't worry if you'll get a couple of overcooked spots. This will happen due to the air bubbles bursting in specific spots of the dough and making that segment extra thin. Because of that, small spots will be a bit more cooked than the rest, and that's inevitable, so don't panic and think that it's a failed endeavor. The first 2 or 3 will always be like that, especially until you get into a groove and you synchronize yourself with this assembly line. Keep rolling, cooking and stacking until you're done. Oh, and before we move on, a last tip. As you're cooking the breads, some residual burnt flour and dough will build up in the pan. So take periodic breaks and scrape that burnt stuff off with a metal spoon or something like that to avoid that buildup from becoming too big and making your flatbreads bitter and nasty. We're done, and the best thing about these flatbreads is that they are so versatile and useful, because they can be used in infinite meal combos. Do you want to make a wrap? Then this will be perfect for that. How about a burrito? Well, you guessed it, works fine. Do you want to dip it into a stew or a soup? Yep, this bread's got you sorted. Your imagination is the limit. And here's a bonus benefit. If you pack them into a bag and keep them in the fridge, they will last for about a week and stay soft and puffy for the entire time. Better yet, if you're like me and you meal prep in advance, you can make a larger batch, pack them in bags and freeze them until you actually need them. That's all for this video, and if you found it useful, then please like it and share it with others. We all could benefit from being a bit more self-sufficient and self-reliant. Thanks for watching and subscribing, and I will see you next week. Bye bye. Try it. You're not getting it. Papi cannot have it. Very nice.